Okay,
Hello, I'm David,
I'm Sahel.
And I'm Armen.
and this is our case study project on group dynamics in cults.
Okay, what are cults? A cult is defined as a group with a shared set of beliefs and practices who are all devoted to one ideology, leader, or doctrine.
Some distinguishing characteristics of cults include devotion to a charismatic leader and members that trust and rely on that leader for guidance. In addition, cults are usually controlled and isolated from society and are forced to conform to group rules, rituals, and practices. Oftentimes, group members are exploited and brainwashed into conforming to the group's beliefs.
For this discussion, we'll be discussing the group dynamics of three main cults: the Family International, Heaven's Gate, and the Branch Davidians. We believe these three conform well with our ideas of talking about group dynamics or within cults themselves and their general practices and malicious ideas.
Okay, the first one we're going to cover is called the Family International, also sometimes referred to as the Children of God. The Family International was founded by David Berg to focus on spreading the Christian gospel to combat counterculture between the 1960s and 70s. Over the years, they had gone through several other names such as Children of God, the Family of Love, and Teens for Christ.
The founder, David Berg, believed that the end of times was coming and that the Antichrist was coming to bring the apocalypse. Their duty was to save as many souls in the name of Jesus as possible. And while the goal of their preaching led to an activity group mentality, their ways of enlisting members was severely questionable during David Berg's founding. Several methods that were used to recruit members used in attempt to were used in attempting to draw those into their group, from the usual preachings to and door-to-door meetings to more abhorrent tactics such as flirty fishing, where they would use their female members' good looks and sexual activity as a way of luring new members in. David Berg had endorsed this lifestyle of love without restraint, preaching Christian gospel while hypocritically passing along ideas that the religion they would normally abhor.
Unfortunately, due to these illicit preachings and endorsing lifestyles, led to many controversies and allegations, many of which were done during the founding of said religious group in 1980s. This involved uh, a, this involved a discovery of physical and sexual abuse amongst members caused by pedophiles. Notable people that were involved in this incident include the Phoenix family, such as Joaquin and River Phoenix. For one example, River Phoenix had been raped as a child at age 4. These abhorrent tactics were some of many allegations that were done during the time of the Children of God.
Okay, Heaven's Gate is another cult that we're going to cover. It's a religious cult that focused on extraterrestrial salvation and believed their bodies were vessels, meaning they believed their physical form was just a temporary existence. Groupthink played an important role in this specific religious cult.
Heaven's Gate is notorious for conducting one of the largest mass suicides in the United States. This group combined New Age beliefs, Christianity, and UFO lore all into one, making them unique as a group. They adopted gender neutral clothing and names to maintain uniformity and conformity within the group, and members who steered from the group were punished, which made other members afraid to challenge the ideas.
A group like Heaven's Gate relies a lot on the idea of groupthink. Their members are isolated, they are brainwashed, and are completely taken away from all aspects of their life to develop themselves to the group. Oftentimes, they are made this way to delude themselves of the idea that they are just simple mortals in this plane and are waiting for their time of enlightenment to leave this mortal coil, which was obviously untrue and just another part of their brainwashing tactics.
People were often placed on restrictive diets and weren't allowed to interact with people outside of the group and were forced to cut ties with their family completely.
Now, another prominent example of a cult is the Branch Davidians, led by David Koresh, who was a self proclaimed prophet and identified himself as a Messiah figure who would unlock the secrets of the Book of Revelations and bring about the end of times, similar to Family International. Under his leadership, the Branch Davidian followers believed they were living in the last days of humanity and were playing a central role in God's final plan. This doomsday ideology was a major driving force behind the group's daily life and decision making, which ultimately led to the infamous FBI raid of Waco on February 28th of 1993, which caused a 51-day siege that ended in a massive fire that killed around 80 Branch Davidians, including Koresh, on April 19th of 1993.
A significant reason as to why the Branch Davidians are considered to be a cult is the absolute control and authority held over the group. He acted as a direct line to God, and his apocryphal teachings made followers eagerly await end times. He enforced strict rules and moral codes, such as claiming the right to take multiple wives, including underage girls, while other men were forced to stay celibate. This served as a mechanism of control as Koresh solidified his position as a main person to each member's lives. Additionally, dissent was not tolerated, as Khrushchev cultivated an environment of fear and paranoia to keep members obedient and in line. His preachings about the imminent end of the world resulted in a persistent crisis mentality, which served as a way to justify any hardship that the group would endure. Koresh also manipulated group members with fear and guilt if a member doubted him or his teachings, that effectively they were doubting the word of God, which was him.
Psychological tactics like this are described as coercive persuasion by Kathleen Taylor in Brainwashing, the Science of Thought Control. Such tactics produced an intense group loyalty and shared worldview. This kind of group dynamic also aligns with the FIRO model of groups, which include the needs for inclusion, belonging, connection, and acceptance, which are all clearly evident in the group members' behaviors, as well as the need for control in David Koresh's behavior. Ultimately, this group dynamic led to the death of many of the group members during the Waco siege, even when the FBI pressured the Davidians to surrender during the siege and approached their compound with tanks and tear gas. Group members remained loyal to Koresh, who told them the government was the beast of revelation. This shows just how far a charismatic leader can influence a group, as stated by Margaret Singer in Cults in Our Midst. Which brings us to the question, why do cults exist? Some sociological reasons for why cults exist include the feeling of social alienation and need for identity are some of the main reasons why people join cults. Additionally, the need for group cohesion and belonging are fundamental to humans. Groupthink is an important concept in the formation and cohesion of any given cult. They rely on groupthink to create harmony and conformity within the society. Groupthink suppresses critical thinking and makes it easier to get members to adhere to rules and laws within a given cult. It creates uniformity and strengthens the idea of us versus them, which heightens loyalty within a group. It reinforces the ideas and beliefs within the group, which allows for them to maintain a civil and uniform society. It makes members dependent upon each other and forces them to resist outside ideas.
All right, now, while there are many psychological reasons that people will join a cult, we're going to focus on three main points to factor in. One factor being losing their autonomy or their self-choices. It is not a losing of free will, but rather that they do not want to make choices on their own. People who are at a young age, whether young adults or even children, often do not know what thoughts to think of. They do not know what they want, what they don't want. They do not know what kind of choices they have to make, and oftentimes do not want to be the ones making that choice. So oftentimes when they join cults, it's not just the need to fit in, but rather to have someone tell them what to do. They believe that people like these with such charismatic words know what they are doing, know what kind of decisions they will make, and oftentimes will believe in what their words are, regardless of what they ask them to do. A second factor would be competence, as a need of feeling dependent on, feeling need to be a desire to be special. I believe that for many people, they do not feel like they are praised enough for what kind of hard work they do. They feel neglected. They feel isolated in such ways that they are not cherished enough for who they are and what they do. And oftentimes, people hunger and need for someone to compliment them, just the smallest compliments, which often makes them degrade themselves to such lows in society. Thus, the need of joining the cults is the perfect place for the leaders to encapsulate people who are desperate for this kind of necessity, the need to feel special, being, especially for such cults as the Children of God, it could be such a place that you feel special and treated with such warmth, which are just lies. And as for the last factor, it would be the sense of belonging, a sense of a group of people who, just like you, want to fit into this one particular thing, whether it is uh, a sense of religion, a sense of the people that are joining for whatever reason. Many cults prey upon this tactic by indulging them with such ideas that would get them interested in joining. Oftentimes, people do not know what they are getting into and are blinded by the fact that what their need of belonging is what makes them stay in these cults forever, which makes some people stay recruited in these cults rather than leaving. And thus, speaking of recruitment.
Yes, and just to expand on the psychological and sociological reasons as to why people would join a cult, the actual recruitment into cults, it begins with some form of deception, as cults don't typically represent themselves as extreme or dangerous groups to potential members. Instead, they attract potential members through friendly outreach like self-help seminars, meditation retreats, or even political movements. Newcomers are showered with excessive praise, affection, and attention, which makes potential new members feel valued and accepted. That just the general uh, need of belonging is satisfied. And as new recruits are gradually indoctrinated into the cult, retention tactics are employed to solidify loyalty and keep new recruits part of the group. Now, in conclusion, after examining these cults and analyzing the similarities between them, we can see clear evidence of how group dynamics contribute to the formation of cults and how they maintain themselves. In each of these groups, we can see at their core the need for inclusion amongst members who are led by charismatic leaders. This basic human need for belonging to a cohesive group of like minded individuals is a major driving force in the success and existence of cults. Connection to others and acceptance are vital components of human life, and these kinds of needs are satisfied in groups such as these. Furthermore, cults are able to satisfy the need for affection and the need to be liked and respected. And additionally, in cult leaders, we can clearly see that the need for control, power, and the ability to direct others is also satisfied.
Cults are an example of how these groups' dynamics can be exploited. Manipulative tactics like coercive persuasion and brainwashing are used to keep members in line. The conforming of individuals and groups, also called groupthink, occurs when group members begin to believe in and act in ways that lack critical evaluation. Oftentimes, we are just following the orders of a single man or woman or a certain group of people that has started these cults in order to fit in, feel a sense of belonging, feeling a sense of accomplishment, or just because we do not want to make choices on our own, but have someone else make choices for us.
Overall, it's evident that cults are extremely skilled at fulfilling deep psychological, social, and emotional needs of people, but at a great cost. Charismatic authority, isolation, and intense loyalty are all combined to create toxic group environments, despite the fact that the basic needs, as described in the FIRE model, are met.
And here's some of our sources, right?
Mm-hmm. These are many sources that we took upon ourselves doing research of cults involving with group dynamics and their influences and effects on them.
And that concludes our presentation on group dynamics in cults. Thank you for listening.
I have been Armen.
I'm David.